Wylie Hawkins, you're under arrest.
But I knew deep down that whatever I was doing was not the life I was supposed to live.
Dang, that's what I'm studying. I don't know if I really want to go down that path.
If God's not done working, I'm not done waiting.
I always had my best performances on the court after I had really intense weeks.
And I was very much known for my looks, and I was known for what I can make other people look like. And I felt empty again. Imagine being 19 years old and leaving your 9-to-5 in the hopes of something that will be life-changing, but really terrified at what actually may come your way. Today's guest and myself have both walked this path. 19 and 20 years old, we left our quote-unquote day jobs, our 9-to-5 opportunities to take a chance on life and to take a chance on something bigger. And so today I have the opportunity of sitting down with Wylie Hawkins, which I will introduce to you in just a moment, and we are going to dive into his story, how he has built a multiple seven-figure business with a team of 187 people underneath him, and how he is truly living the life that he was destined to live. What's up, Savages, and welcome back to another episode on the Business Savage Podcast. I'm your host, your business coach, and your international speaker, Cassandra Britton. Starting my first business at the age of 19 and scaling to multiple seven figures, I am here to give you the real talk of what it takes to be successful in business. Everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you've been listening here for a moment and enjoying, please leave us a review. It greatly helps us reach a greater audience and other people like you hear this message. And of course, don't forget to hit the bell in the top corner so that you never miss a future episode as they air. Okay, friends, let's dive into the juicy stuff today. Wylie, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you? I'm pumped to be here.
You're
that was
pumped?
A great intro, yeah.
Coming from North Carolinian?
We've been debating this. I'm originally from Colorado. We were debating Coloradan, so if you guys are out there, please help us out.
He flew in from North Carolina last night. We're doing a couple of days of some dope content experience for him. And while he's here, I really wanted to bring his story to all of y'all because, first of all, we have something very similar in common, starting at the age of 19, the age of 20, scaling to multiple seven figures, having a team underneath us, also very strongly driven by our faith. And so we've got a lot of advice to share with you. We're going to share the truth. We're going to share the raw stuff. We're going to share the successes that you can do it too. And we're going to be really candid about the whole experience here.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I mean, stuff like this was really what I started tuning into around 18, 19 years old. And I always appreciated when people like you were giving out a blueprint and a roadmap, because someone that has that drive, that ambition, that's all they need is just here, step 1, step 2, step 3. And so I'm excited to get into it.
Cool. Let's lose the ego. You didn't know I was going to say that.
Oh my gosh.
I don't even know why we did that. Funny. It was just, we've been shooting all day and the sunglasses were out. So here we go. Let's introduce the audience to Wylie Hawkins. I've had the opportunity of working with you for a couple of months now. You found me through some email marketing stuff.
Yeah.
And then very quickly, like call 2, he's like, wait a second. What else do you do and how can I get more of this? And then here we are today. You've flown in and we're spending a couple of days together. So let's give our audience an insight into who Wylie is and what it is that you do.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, I was going to college like everybody else. I was working in hospitality and I was actually working valet. And I actually was watching Wolf of Wall Street with some of my buddies, and it got me tuned into the idea of sales and making money. And I always saw these people with nice cars and stuff, and I was like, that'd be cool. Let's try to figure that out. And I had a roommate that walks in to our house, and he's like buzzing off the walls, excited. His name's Garrett, and we call him G. I was like, G, what's going on, dude? Like, you just meet the woman of your dreams. Like, why are you so excited? And he's like, no, dude, I just made $1,000 in an hour. And I was like, okay, are you selling dope? Like, what are you doing? Because in my world, that was the only way to make money. And he's like, no, I'm slinging life insurance. And at first I was like, what? Like, that sounds kind of weird. How does it work? He breaks it all down. And I was like, dang, so you just call the people that send in a form, you read a little script, and then you help them out with the product that they need. I could do that. And so I gave it a shot. My first month, I made $8,000. Second month, net was like $22K. And after that, I was like, we really have something here. And so that was about 4.5 years ago, going on 5. And yeah, we scaled up to 187 agents like we talked about. And yeah, we're just trying to build something that's great.
Amazing. Let's take like 5 steps back.
Okay.
Because that's where you're at now, 25?
Yeah.
Okay, 25 years old, friends, 25. But obviously it wasn't always butterflies and rainbows. Like, you've probably had a million jobs before this.
Yeah.
So like, let's take a step back to, I want to connect to the person who, I get this all the time, and I know that you probably do too. You know, daddy must have handed it to you, or life must have been given to you on a silver platter, or she always came from that, or whatever it is. I've worked for every damn thing that I have in my entire life, and I know that you have too. So I want to connect with the person who listens to this, who thinks, I don't know if I have what it takes. I don't know if I can do that, or I wasn't dealt that deck of cards.
Yeah.
And I want them to understand that if you can do it and if I can do it, they can do it too.
Yeah.
So let's take a step back. Like, what led you before that opportunity?
Yeah. So I'll give you a snapshot, but when my parents are split parents, and so it was always mom and dad. And until I was 14 years old, I didn't know that people were married. The first time that I ever met a married couple was when I went to a new school in Denver to pursue basketball. And I went to their house, and they were like cooking dinner together. And I was like, wait, like your mom and dad live together? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, that is so odd. So I grew up with the divorced parents, and I did everything you could imagine. I did construction. I worked on ranches. I was mainly focused in the hospitality industry once I found like being a server and a busboy. And I really enjoyed that. And then I went to college because for me, I honestly wanted to party. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I wanted to party, and that was like a big part of my upbringing. Was I always liked to have fun, and so I had the wrong intentions when I was in school, and I feel like that really helped me because I met with my GM that worked in Aspen, where I was a server at, and I was like, hey, can I ask you something? He's like, yeah. I was like, how much money do you make? And he's like, oh, I make like $350,000, and I was like, okay, that's pretty solid. Like, how long did it take you to get there? And he was like 35 years. And he's like, dude, I worked every Christmas, every Thanksgiving. Like, that's what the hospitality industry is. And I was like, dang, that's what I'm studying. Like, I don't know if I really want to go down that path. But I was just stuck in this place where it was hard for me to let go, because so many people just said, just buy into it, like just work it, you know, just do your 25, do your 35, do your 45 years. But I was like, the people that I want to become like, in the terms of like their material success and like what they built for themselves, they didn't go down that path. And so success leaves clues. And that's when I really started pondering these thoughts of like, is the direction I'm headed really the right direction? And you probably, you know, relate a lot to this, but yeah, that was the upbringing.
Yeah. When did faith come into your journey?
So for me, it was actually how I got into the business, like truly. So before G walked in and, you know, I shared that story, I was praying one day and I was like, God, like, I'm so lost. I have no idea if you're real, but like, please show me now that this is where I or like, where do I go? Like, what do I do? And then boom, G walks in like a couple hours later, and then it led me down to what I do now. I had like a shepherd in my business, essentially someone that just like led me to my faith. But here's a really good story. So when I was in high school, I ran with the crew, and we would do like really, really bad things that I can't share on this podcast because most of them are in jail. And so I thought I was going to get caught up in this. And this will all make sense. When I'm working at the country club, my GM pulls me out and he goes, Wylie, I need to speak to you. And the only thing that I cared about was my work. And I was like, gosh, I'm going to get fired today. So I want you guys to picture this. So on the right-hand side of me, as he's walking me out of the kitchen, there's just a big old building, red brick. And then on the left-hand side is all the employee parking. And he's just like, wait right here. And he takes 10 steps and he just turns and he looks at me. And I'm like, what? And then I get this eerie feeling like something bad's about to happen. And there's a Dodge Charger, all black, and these two guys hop out of it in uniform. And they go, Wylie Hawkins, you're under arrest. And I was like, oh, like my past is catching up to me. And so I'm 17, I put my hands in the air, but I'm like, you know what, if I'm going down, I'm going to run. So I do a beeline to the left. I get laid out. And anyways, they cuff me. They shackle my ankles and they put a leash between the two. And it's called getting transported. And I got sent out to this camp in Montana. And so what we did there was we chopped wood and we moved rocks all day and like went to quote unquote school, but it was nothing. And it was a really interesting camp. Like some people might see this stuff on TV. Like they were promising our parents we were going kayaking and hiking, doing all these cool things. Like we were building them a cabin with this amazing granite staircase. Like it was like wicked evil over there. And so I called my dad and I was like, yo, you have to check out this place. Like whatever you're paying for is not what you expect. Anyways, every time a new kid would come in, we'd always ask him like, hey, like what are you in here for? And so I meet this kid named Mahmood. And he's like this sweetheart, like just super joyful, sincere dude. And me and him really click. And so my dad comes out and finally visits us. He meets Mahmood. They really connect. And then fast forward, when I get introduced to sales, I call my dad. I'm like, yo, this thing's going really well. He's like, there's only one thing you need to do. Call Mahmood. And so I call Mahmood and he doesn't like come and work for me right away. It actually took me 18 months for him to really believe in what we had. And so now he's with us. His team actively does like 1.4 million a month as of today. He's helping 80 first generation Americans go out and make more money than their whole entire family has ever seen. And so I've been connecting the dots back to my life where I didn't know that God was in my life, but he was always right next to me, leading me to where I wanted to go. And so that's why the story goes full circle. But those constant reminders are really important because a lot of the times we're so bought into the material things of this world, just everything that like the flesh desires. And sometimes we forget the season that we're in has a purpose. And sometimes we just have to be quiet and listen to it.
Yeah.
And so that's really what brought me into my faith.
If God's not done working, I'm not done waiting.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's never done working.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit. You have a big childhood and still, because we've been shooting some hoops, we still have a strong childhood in sports. Any other sports besides basketball?
Basketball was my main one. I mean, I played football, I did track, but basketball was really like my bread and butter.
So that's like me and my hockey. And that's the reason I bring this up is because I see the passion that you have for basketball. And it's the same passion that I have for hockey. I grew up playing hockey since I was 4 years old, competitive hockey. Anyone who listens to the show knows this story, but you may or may not. And it's a very, very, very big dominant part of who I am and what made me who I am. And so I want to talk a little bit about, because whether you're an athlete or not an athlete, or maybe you're going to be a new parent and thinking about putting your kids in sports, the skills that you learn in sports are so transferable to being a business owner. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of them, like being competitive, being resilient, teamwork. What are some things that you feel like being an athlete and being competitive in sports has helped you with as a business owner? Yeah.
Well, I think there's a great example that we just did. So I was having the hardest time getting this one reel down that we were filming. And Cass is like, give me the ball. And then she just takes the ball. And, you know, we have Mitch, the videographer, here with us. And she just like one take wonder over here, crushes it. And I'm like, it's like probably my 30th time trying it. I watched her do it once and I was like, that was amazing, but there's no way she just did that in her first try. And then next thing you know, Mitch hits me with the camera. I was able to do it. But I think that really correlates to things in business because competition brings the best out of you. And so that's why I'm such a big advocate for sales, because it just breeds competition. It breeds that competitive nature. And so I think that's the first thing. Now, the second thing I would say is just that team player aspect, just understanding that you're not everything to everybody and that you need, for me, like there's 5 people on the court. Like you need to have your shooting guard, your power forward, your center, your point guard, the whole 9 yards. And so that's why it's so important to be associated with people like you, where you're teaching me a ton of things and that I get to learn lessons from you, and I hope vice versa, right? And so I love that side of just business. But alongside that, like understanding that your growth comes from pain. And anytime I was in the weight room, I was going through those hard trainings, I always had my best performances on the court after I had really intense weeks. And I think that's important to remember. Like it says in the Bible, a wise man wants to be in the house of suffering and a fool wants to be in the house of pleasure. And that's in Ecclesiastes. And that verse means a ton to me, because if you're out there and you're going through something, you're like, shoot, I'm in a tough position. There's a reason for that, because you're going to begin to look in the mirror and be like, whatever led me here needs to change, but there's so much suffering which allows you to change. And so I know it can be daunting and your headspace can be so warped, but I want you to hear it from me and Cass that you just got to put your head down and just take inch by inch, step by step.
Yeah, literally. Let's talk about the moment right before you started your business, and I'll do the same, because I feel like, you know, we want to kind of give like a roadmap, and obviously we can't do that in a 45-minute episode, but we can do our best.
Yeah, let's do it.
And so I want to kind of talk about what were you doing right before you found out about life insurance, and let's talk about mindset for a moment and what actually goes through your mind in terms of comparison, in terms of imposter syndrome, in terms of the biggest one, the 4-letter word fear. How am I going to do this? How am I going to make a paycheck? Like, what is this going to look like? What are people going to think about me?
Yeah.
You know, thinking that we're supposed to go to college and have these typical careers, right? What you said, yours was in the hospitality space. Mine was in the sports industry. I worked for Toronto Maple Leafs and Toronto Raptors. And so, you know, I quit that job and took a chance on my own business with absolutely no idea of what it was going to look like. But I want to bring in faith for a second, because at that moment, I grew up religious and I lost my faith. I was in a relationship and he didn't believe in it, and very much we weren't allowed to talk about it. But I knew deep down that whatever I was doing was not the life I was supposed to live. And though it felt like everybody else's dream life, I was one of 5 women that graduated from a class of 80 men. And I was the one who got this dream job at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment that everybody else wanted, and I was miserable. And I felt guilty for being miserable, because everybody wanted this job that I had, but it wasn't my dream. And so to really be able to tune in and say to myself, like, this is not my life, and this is not as good as it gets. Like, I know that there's more out there for me, and I don't know what that looks like, and that is really fucking scary. Like, can we be honest how scary that is, to not know what's going to happen, to not know if I can pay my bills, to not know if I'm going to fall on my face or what is going to happen. But I know that God's got me. And I know that this is part of my journey, and I know that I'm going to figure it out. And that's the definition of a savage on this show, is that you will get knocked down, but you will always, always get back up. Resiliency. So let's talk about that moment before you got in your like golden ticket and that everything changed for you. How scary was that for you, for the person who's about to start a business right now?
Yeah.
Like,
I would say, I mean, just to unpack what you just said, like the first 2 lessons I got from that is like, always follow your gut and your heart, because that's your head, your heart, your whole entire soul telling you the direction. Like, that's the Holy Spirit. People ask me like, what's the Holy Spirit? It's exactly what you just explained. So follow that. You're the one that pays your bills. You're the one living your life, not anybody else's. So that's like the first lesson I got from that. And then number 2, you put yourself in a fight or flight situation where you're like, shoot, my back's against the wall. Like, I just left the Maple Leafs Toronto Raptors, like that super cool gig. Like, I got to fight. Yeah. You know, I already ran. Like, now it's time to fight. And so like, that's what I would, you know, really stand on right there, is those are the first 2 lessons. And for me, I would start gearing this towards, you know, take 1 and 2, and then 3 would be, focus on the product, which is you. Because I was really big into self-help, getting myself sober and cleaned up after my college experience. But I was reading books actively. I was seeking out better habits. And I think it starts by going through and just write down, like, what are all the things in my life that need to be removed first before I can add things into my life. Because you have to take things out of your closet before you get really badass stuff in it. And so that was the biggest thing for me before I got into my business. Was I was 14 months sober, and I was waking up at the time that when my alarm went off, I woke up, because I wanted to make sure that I stood on whatever came out of my mouth was truth. And then I just did that over time. So I started trusting myself and believing in myself, but I was scared shitless still, like, no matter what. But that would be the first lesson that I would say to anyone out there is, follow your gut, put yourself in a fight or flight, start going to war with yourself and whatever your business is. And then number 3 is what I just talked about, you know, work on yourself. Like, that's the engine that makes this thing run. But yeah, I'm kind of curious. So what did you start when you were 19? And how did you find it?
I started my beauty business and it kind of found me. So if I'm being so honest, and again, people who've listened to this show for a while know a lot about my journey. Now I'm living my purpose. Now I'm where I'm supposed to be. But it has taken so much work and so much reflection to truly understand who is Cassandra and what does she want and what does living a life of purpose for Cassandra actually mean. My first business was exactly what it was supposed to be. I served a lot of people. It was a beauty business. I started a bridal hair and makeup business, and I've served over 10,000 women doing permanent makeup. Was really well known in my area, started charging higher prices, opened up a training academy, brought on a team, $100,000 worth of renovations in a beautiful salon, everybody's dream. I got to walk into this beautiful business, but again, I found myself miserable. And it was because my conversations were about your eyebrows and how you need your eyebrows because your husband doesn't love you if you don't have eyebrows, or you can't go swimming without your eyebrows washing off and you don't feel secure without your eyebrows.
Vanity.
Right. Like the list goes on. And then the girls that were around that and that we were attracting in team-wise were also all around that same kind of level. And I was very much known for my looks, and I was known for what I can make other people look like. And I felt empty again because I remember one day having a woman sit on my bed and I was analyzing her eyebrows, and I thought to myself, I can't take $600 from this woman. She doesn't need eyebrows. What she needs is a man who actually loves her and who doesn't tell her every day that she needs eyebrows. Yeah. And social media telling her that she needs better eyebrows and all of this other shit in her life that is just distracting her from the beauty that she actually has. And I got emotional thinking about it because I didn't take her money. And I literally said to her, I can't do this service for you because I think you are so freaking beautiful. You don't need this. And it made me realize how much more I wanted to help people internally with their mindset and the things that actually matter. A couple weeks later, my doors to my business were shut because of COVID. And for 9 months, I wasn't allowed to operate my business. For 9 months, the doors were shut and we were not legally allowed to operate the business. And they were coming back in phases. You were allowed to do certain things. Some of the girls were allowed to do certain things, but I wasn't allowed to do my services. We weren't allowed to do makeup, COVID, all that stuff. And that's when I started my coaching business. That's when I dove so deep into personal development and figuring out, okay, God has literally closed that door.
Yeah.
He has literally closed that door to allow you to step into what is next for you. And, are you going to take it? Are you going to see this opportunity? Are you going to be strong enough to be scared, not know what this looks like, leave a 7-figure business for a $0 business and do this again? Because you did it once, you can do it again. And one of the beautiful things that I like to say to people too is so many people are scared of failure. It's the number one fear when we start anything, when you want to ask somebody out on a date, when you want to ask for a raise, when anything, we're scared of the answer, no. You deal with this all the time. Sales agents, I'm scared. What if they say no? What do I do if they say no? And all the different forms of no and forms of objections. But there's actually no such thing as failure if you never stop. There's literally no such thing. Like, it can come to you in so many different directions, and it's like, okay, that didn't work. That relationship didn't work. That person didn't say yes. That person didn't say yes to my offer, whatever it is. So it's like, okay, let's adjust. Let's pivot a little bit and let's figure out where the yes is. And then let's go down that path. Because God really is never going to close a door in your face that's meant to be open. And I think a lot more people need to have full, like, head to toe. I am like so in surrender of trust of God's plan for me that it's, some people are like, the other day, I'm talking a lot. The other day, I was down in, where was I? Orlando. I flew from Colorado to Orlando for an event. I have paid thousands of dollars to be in this program, bought a new outfit, wanted to be on this big stage, meet my mentor. It was a massive event for stage speakers. And the night before when I got there, the VIP dinner, it hit me how sick I was feeling. And I spent the next 24 hours constantly puking, hugging the toilet. I could not leave the hotel. I missed the entire event. I didn't get to meet her. I didn't get to meet anybody. Didn't even get my sweatshirt. like nothing. And within, oh gosh, I don't know, the first 5 rounds of puking, I was like, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. I hope I feel better in the morning. And then it was just like, if God doesn't want me to go to this event, then I'm not supposed to go to this event. And I may never know why. I may sit here and stomp my feet and throw a temper tantrum and this sucks and everyone give me attention and I'm the big victim and this sucks. Or I can just be like, nah, like, God didn't want you to be there. That wasn't where you were supposed to be. This is where you were supposed to be. And just trust that. There's no failure. There's no, disappointments or whatever. That's life. And that was supposed to be part of my path. And I think that if a lot more people could live with that type of surrender, they would live a lot more peaceful. life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't even know what my original question for you was.
No, I got this. So I got you. Yeah. So, I mean, continue to listen on, but like, I'm very like action oriented and like step by step. So like for me, like listening to you, it goes, frame your failures as lessons, because the quicker you fail, the quicker you get better. But it's not a failure, it's a lesson, right? Like you had to go through whatever BS it was to teach you how to do this, how to speak to this person, how to run this, right? And then number 5 is like be obedient to the Father. Genuinely, like lean into him. Everything good comes from God. Like the fruits of the Spirit, I won't try to name them because I'm definitely going to mess up, but that's everything good is from God, and you seek the kingdom first and all else shall come, And so I think that's really important to remember too. But for me, I was curious as you were speaking, who were your mentors and what type of questions were you asking them? Because I think the quality of your questions gets the quality response you want. So what did that look like for you?
Yeah, this is a really good question. So my first biggest mentor is, my dad. My dad was an entrepreneur growing up, so he was my first. You haven't heard this story, but I remember driving to hockey practice one day, and I looked over and there was a beautiful car beside us. And I thought to myself, Dad, if I was a doctor one day, would I be able to afford that car? And he was like, maybe if you were a surgeon or I don't know, some kind of fancy doctor. My dad's a very practical man. I said, okay, well, what if I was a lawyer? Lawyers make really good money. If I'm a lawyer, can I afford that car? He's like, if you're a lawyer and you marry a doctor and together you guys have a really good income, maybe. And here I am thinking to myself, well, my dad's a business owner. And then he said, I turned to him and with the biggest grin in my face, I was like, I'm going to be a business owner. I'm going to be a business owner because if I'm a business owner, I get to decide the number, the zeros that I put at the end of that paycheck. I get to decide that. And then I can buy that car, and then I can buy you that car.
How old were you?
12.
I'm just picturing that. It's so epic.
So Dad, my uncle, who runs a life insurance business, we mentioned that when I first met you. Mm-hmm. Uncle has, I think, 70 some odd businesses he's owned, from topless pool bars to car mechanic shops to donut shops to everything in between. Half of them went belly up, and the guy just would not stop. No one believed in him. He's like, I don't care, I believe in myself, kept going, and now just stupid amount of money and success and happiness, which is more important than the money. But if you want to talk about like tangible people, it was, so after that I had Rob Dial was one of my mentors when I was first starting, the Mindset Mentor. He was the first one that I invested in a hefty amount of money, $10,000 for his program. I didn't really have it. I didn't really know where I was going to get it from, but I knew that like my salon was closed. I was like, I don't really have 10 grand to be forking out right now. But I believed in the vision and in the mission, and I'd listened to his podcast for a really long time and just really understood and appreciated the way that he spoke. And so then more importantly, underneath him was his kind of like right hand, which you've now met and he lives and I introduced you to, is my really good friend Amar, who quickly became like a father and a best friend and a mentor all in one. And that man was available anytime I needed a phone call or a quick conversation, and he would just lead me through next level questions. So one of the things that I really valued about him is, and I take some credit for this too, I don't ask you, well, how do I do that? I don't ask you for the step-by-step. I ask you to like tell me what it's like in 5 years, or I ask you for something that like can help inspire me to the next steps. I was never the person that, like, I'm very, very, very resourceful. And so I just need to know kind of like a guideline that's possible, and asking you future thinking questions. I want to know what kind of habits do I need to change. I want to know who I need to surround myself more with. I want to know how that person is living their life, because like you said, success leaves clues. And if they're doing it, then so can I. I want to know, how are you living your life? And so I would hear in the group, a lot of people would ask questions like, well, what do I post on social media? Well, what should my caption be? Well, what should the hashtag be? Well, what do I say on a sales call? And I'm like, dude, I never asked any of those questions, any of them. You just figure it out. So kind of future and forward thinking questions when it came to that. And then I've had quite a few mentors since them, paid mentors and unpaid mentors. And I think one of the biggest pieces of advice that I can wrap up my answer to this with is your inner circle. And I have a couple episodes back on this. I I cannot stress to you how important it is. I cannot stress how important your inner circle is in your life. And whether it's your mother, whether it's your father, whether it's your sister, whether it's someone who's been your best friend your entire life, like I don't care who it is. If they are not serving who you are trying to become, they don't need to be in your life. I don't care who it is. And if they should stay, I have a beautiful relationship with my dad. Growing up I did, then we lost it, and then I got it back. My dad, I want him to stay in my life. So how do I make this work? How do I maintain a healthy relationship with my dad and set proper boundaries so that he can stay in my life? But there's obviously some boundaries that need to be had here. And any one of my friends who, they weren't inspiring to me. Like if I say tomorrow, if I were to turn to two of my best friends, like Sophia and Kate, if I were to turn to them and say, I'm starting this, I'm moving here, and I'm having a baby, they'd be like, fuck yeah, how can I help you? Like, what do you need? What do you need from me? Whereas I have a couple other friends, I could say the exact same thing to them, and they'd say, you can't do that. Oh my God, but what about this? But what about that? You're so young. And it would just be a list of their projections and their insecurities that they would put onto me. Your inner circle, the people that you give the most amount of attention to and the most amount of time to, it needs to A, be small, and B, you need to make sure that you are trimming the fat and getting rid of people that aren't inspiring to you.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Have mentors played a role in your life?
Yeah, no, I like that last part you were talking about, because when people respond with negativity, I respond with absence. Because you can say a lot without saying anything. And there's certain topics and certain things that I will never bring up around people because I don't want to have doubt get carried into my head. And so I think people need to be really aware of that. And then just to backtrack, like pay to play, you know, like you paid to play. So did I. Like I took all the tip money I had in the shoebox and I invested in a sales coach.
So what about the person, because I agree, what about the person who like literally can't do it, can't afford it? Like let's give them some strategies. Yeah,
I mean, like look at it. So whatever your industry is or whatever you're trying to accomplish, don't go to the mid-level, don't even go to the top, go to the 1%, the best in that industry, and figure out like they're going to have a social media platform. They're going to have some type of content out there. Like consume every single bit of it.
Podcasts are free.
Yeah, podcasts are free. And guys, like there's so much information out there. You're a fool if you think you can't get it. Just being genuine. And so that's what I would say is like seek counsel from social media, but find the 1%ers. Don't find someone that's like, oh, like, you know, I'm here. It's like, no, go to the best of the best because they're going to give you the real advice. And so I would start there. And then also I would just lean on your reps. Like, just lean on like that bootstrap mentality. Like go get your duct tape, like go grab your boots and like carry the wood and chop the water, chop the water, baby. It's so funny. We've had a long day of talking, man.
I told you, I asked you, were you going to be able to keep up?
Yeah, we're doing good. But what I was going to say is chop the wood and carry the water every single day. Like have non-negotiables in your life so one of the biggest things that helped me, and I've done this every single day since I started becoming an entrepreneur, is do 3 things every day that move your needle forward. And for me, it's simple some days. It's read the Bible, hit a workout, and then it's one like actionable step in my business. Yeah. You know, make 300 dials or whatever it is, or like call my mentor, ask them the questions that I have. And then also what I wanted to say, but seriously, like take that for what it's worth, because that is one of the biggest driving factors in my life. Is every single night I prep 3 things that I'm going to do, and they can be super simple. Because sometimes being great in a day doesn't mean that you accomplish all of this. Sometimes it's literally waking up, making sure that you're healthy, you're appreciative. Like that's a win, you know, and you got to count that stuff. But what I was going to say was, oh man, I just kind of lost it. Oh, it was so good, Cass. It was coming. Let's see if I got it. If not, you're going to have to save me. Save me.
Well, one thing that I will touch on while you're scrambling to find your thoughts there is I do believe in going to the best. I do 100%. I believe in following them. I believe in listening to their podcasts. I believe in buying their books. I believe in all of that sort of stuff. But if there's a really big gap and a disconnect between the 18, 19, 25-year-old, whoever that's listening to this right now and thinking, well, how do I become the Gary Vee? How do I become the Alex Hormozy? How do I become the, you know, Layla Hormozy and all that type of stuff? I actually believe that they should start with someone that's like 5 steps ahead of them. Especially if I think about something like the beauty industry. I don't think that you should go to somebody who's $100,000 a year to work work with and you probably can't get a hold of them and they only have a group community and you don't get any one-on-one support, I actually believe that you should find the person in your town who has the best thriving beauty industry, and you should ask them, can I just mentor you? Can I maybe just like bring you coffee? Is there something that I can give you? And this is where I challenge everyone to get really resourceful, because I get this question a lot and it just drives me freaking bananas. You do not have to be rich or have a lot of money to have a mentor. There are I have offered in exchange for things when I didn't have the money. I've offered my time. I've offered so many different things that I could do for you in exchange, or I can connect you with this person, or now it's like, well, maybe I can have you on my show and give you the exposure of my show, or all of these different things that you have to get really good at understanding that it's not just money that other people are interested in. Now more than ever, what I've really learned is people are actually interested in relationships, and they care a lot about building relationships. I would argue that almost every How I Met You, it came from a relationship. How people prosper so often today is because of the relationships that they have built. And when that person thinks about them, it's like, oh, that's a really good person. They've done something for me. I've done something for them. I am connected to their vision and their mission. That feels really good. And it's like the law of reciprocity. Whereas so many people think that they have to just be a millionaire in order to be able to afford these incredible mentors. And that's simply not the case. There's so many other ways. Like, you can buy books and you can listen to podcasts. Podcasts are literally free. And so if you're interested in a topic, go all in on that topic. I've been to networking events before, or where I was speaking at events on panels, and I would have young girls in the audience pull me aside and say, can I just talk to you for 10 minutes? Absolutely, you can talk to me for 10 minutes. Like, absolutely. Now, if you ask me, and there's a difference too, because when you go up to somebody and you ask them, like, there's certain questions that feel really exciting and feel really like, oh, I can tell that this person's done their work and that they're here to hustle. And then there's other people that just want you to like pass them the book of how you've done what you've done. And those people don't get the same answers from me as the others. But it's about being resourceful and truly not waiting for anyone to hand you anything, but like figuring it out yourself.
Yeah, I got my thought back.
You're welcome.
Thank you. But mentors are always seeking that next person that they want to go and help, because like for me, and that's truly how I feel, I know that's how you feel, but the impact that we really make is finding someone that reminds us of ourselves and pouring into them. Mm-hmm. And so don't be afraid that these people are just going to shut you down. Like, you have to be relentless. Like, I remember I called my mentor 15 times one day and he's like, hey, what's up? And I thought he was going to be like, dude, yo, like, why are you calling me? And he's like, sorry, dude, like, I was busy all day, And I was like, dude, I really need, what do you need? And so that was a really good reminder, is these, whoever you're seeking, they're there to help, but have quality questions, right? But yeah, that was I got it back.
Let's talk about your team. I want to talk about building a team. My first time building a team wasn't very successful. I wasn't a good leader. I didn't know how to lead. I didn't know how to build a proper team. I didn't know how to, let's put it this way. The woman that I am today and what I know now, a leader leads, and it's done through showing them. It's done through you setting the example. Same way when you go to be a parent. If the kid goes to touch something and you say to them, why are you touching that? Don't touch that. You can't touch that. Stop doing that. Well, don't be surprised if 2 hours later that kid turns around and you're like, you can't touch that, or stop doing that. And the kid's like, no, I'll do what I want. They're going to replicate back to you the same energy that you show them. And it's the exact same way in leadership. When you're leading a team, is I can't tell you what to do. I can't force you what to do. I can't put you in this little corner and make you figure it out, but I can sure as hell show you. Mm-hmm. And that is how I live my life right now. And that is why I believe so strongly in branding and building a brand that attracts, because all I need to do is be. I just need to be me. I need to talk the way I talk. I need to live the way that I live. I need to put it out there, and it's going to attract because of that simple essence of being, which is the feminine energy. Mm-hmm. And so now I've lost my train of thought. I got you. Look at us. Yeah, so let's really buckle down on the leadership thing. So for me, I wanted to, have proof of concept, right? So I wanted to be the one that could do it at the highest level, because I was selling $40,000 a month 90 days in.
And if somebody tried recruiting me and they only sold 20, I was like, dude, I'm going to run right over you. So I needed to become the person that I wanted to follow. And I think that's really important, is be the person that you want to follow, right? And it's better to stand side by side with people than you be in front of them pulling them. And what I mean by side is, for me, it was, I did my calls right next to my guys. They watched me get hammered with objections. I watched them get hammered with objections, and then I would give them my advice. But it was always from the position of, this is what I know through my experiences, and this is what I have done that's helped me. I don't know if it's 100% true, because I think people can get in big trouble like sharing their convictions, because something that works for me might not work for you, but this is my truth. And so I think, number one, go and light yourself on fire and go get the result that you want. And then number two, to get like really tactical if you're running a sales team, or if you're just trying to hire staff. Like, I call it throwing the line over someone's head. So if I was calling you and like we had a relationship, let's just say like in college, and like we just went to class together, and I was trying to recruit you, this is what I would do. You ready to role play?
Okay.
No, it's gonna be simple. No, now you're scaring me. She's like rubbing her hand. She's like, I'm gonna hit
like
him.
a competition. I'm ready to go.
No, I'll just call you, be like, ring, like, hey, Cass, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Long time no see. I only got a couple minutes, but I wanted to ask you a couple things. You're still working at that hotel, right?
Yes.
Sweet. Have you seen like any of the stuff like I've been putting out on social media or anything like that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm in sales actually now, and it's been going really, really good for me. It's actually changing my life. Like, my first month I did this, second month I deposited 22K. And I know you're a really hard worker, and that's kind of what we're looking for, hard workers, people that are coachable, and gratitude. But I also know you're really complacent with where you're at, and you're happy there. But you're also pretty well connected. And so my manager's running a little competition right now. Well, I guess incentive. If you connect me with anybody that you think would be a good fit here, our average agent makes $10,000 a month. They give you $500 for that connection. Is there anybody out there that you can think of?
I just get out my little book.
Yeah, right. She's like, give me that 500.
Yeah, $500 affiliate. Let's go.
So that was my first way of doing it, because when I tried like actively like, yo, Cass, like, I'm making this, they're like, yo, that sounds way too good to be true. But when I threw it over their head and I said, like, I know you're happy with where you're at, like, here are the tangible things we're looking for, like, here's like the average result of someone, and then I asked for a connection, they get disrespected and they think to themselves, shoot, like, why didn't he just ask me? Like, I'm not really 100% happy with where I'm at. And then now what happens is, if you truly want to build a team, like, you better hop your ass on social media. Like, honestly, like, social media is where the money is. And I always just promoted myself, and like every client that I served, I'd take a picture with them and share that. I would walk through what product I got them, why we got it, and then how much money I made from that. And I did that day in and day out. And so then what happens is, people think to themselves, well, shoot, like, that sounds pretty good. Then they see the next 7 days of videos from me on my story, and they're like, let me give Wylie a call. And then boom. And then once you get someone in your business, for me, if you really want to build a really big business, like, you have to get them the result, and speed wins. And so we get guys paid within the first 48 hours minimum. Like, they'll make their first 500, 1,200, whatever their first check is, within 48 hours, because that's when their belief is so high. And so we put so much emphasis on getting them paid, because when they see a check come in for $1,200 and that was their weekly check or 2-week paycheck, and they just did that in an hour, they're like, yo, this is gangster. And then we get them really paid that first month. And then from there, we're like, hey, dude, who do you know in your life that is seeking another opportunity? And so we call that tap rooting, because I have a network that I've already went through, but you have a network that's humongous, right? And so I have access to them through our relationship now. And so that's my strategy in terms of, 1, leadership, and 2, recruitment. And when it came to staff, people want to help you. Like, some people don't, but if you just put feelers out there, engage where people are at, like, hey, like, I'm looking for a secretary, and like, this is what I'm needing. This is what I'm willing to pay. Like, can you help me put the word out? And you call everybody in your contact book and you just say that, like, you're bound to find one person. But that's a start. And that one person is probably not going to be your staff for life, but it's going to teach you so much. And also when it comes to staff, like, this is really important to me, but the biggest 3 things that make me money in my business was 1, actively selling, 2, actively recruiting, and 3, actively training. Anything outside of that, I was losing money on. I was terrified to get staff. But then I realized my time is worth $500 an hour. If I pay someone $20 an hour or whatever it was, I was making myself more money and getting my time back. And when that concept really hit my head and my heart, I got like 3 staff right away, and none of them are with me because it was just, bumpy. But I would definitely say if, you're in a position right now where you're seeking staff, but you're scared. Also, this is a really big lesson. Letting go of control allows your business to grow.
Ooh, say it again.
Letting go of control allows your business to grow. There's 2 ways to delegate. You either delegate through tasks or you delegate authority. But you have to teach them how to delegate authority. You have to teach them to do the task to some degree. But once you do that, like, let them stumble a little, because pain is going to be the best teacher that you have. And so for me, I try not to ever let myself like boast about myself and have others do it. It says that in the Bible. But one thing I will say that I'm decent at is genuinely delegation and putting people in charge of areas that I'm not good at. Like, I suck at a lot of things actually, but I'm only good at like these 2-3 things. And like, that's just what I'm going to get really good at. And so you don't have to be perfect in all aspects of your business. Like, yeah, you might have to wear all the hats in the beginning, but as you just keep going, like, now you'll know this sector of your business and you can plug someone in. And since I'm kind of on a tangent, I will share this with you. When you're interviewing staff, what I would look for is if they can't teach you something on the subject or the role that you're trying to bring them in on, they're probably not a good fit, because if my intelligence in that area is here and theirs is here, I don't want to bring them on. I want them here so they teach me things, right? And so I think that's a really key metric, is when you're talking to people and interviewing them, like, can they teach you something?
Yeah. I think that that's really important to understand. Like, I want to double tap on the control thing, because that was huge for me. Absolutely incredibly massive. I've had a lot of staff in this business and in the last that were not successful. And it wasn't until I was willing to let go of control and truly trust somebody, but also give them everything that they need to succeed in that role, then you feel like you can actually let go of the control, because it's going well, because you've done your job. You can't just be like, well, do this, and they're not doing it right, and you're like, well, I'll just do it then because I do it better, and just give it back to me. And then here you are taking that control back again, instead of just teaching them properly how to do it. Right. But the other piece of that, like with you touching on them knowing more than you, is I think it's really important that they have a growth mindset. I talk about this a lot with one of my other clients, is, many hands make light work, but it comes with, when you are building a team, you have to understand, here's my zone of genius. And as you said, you've got a couple of things you're really good at. I have a couple of things I'm really freaking good at. Like, I'm like a 10 out of 10. There's not many people better at me at those things. But there's a lot of things when it comes to running a business that I'm like a 2 out of 10. And so a smart business owner can identify, hey, this is my zone of genius. This is where I'm really good. And this is what I really like doing. All of these things, they need to be done to run the business, but I'm not good at it, or I don't know how. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out someone who is really good at this, who is really good at systems and operations, who is really good at all of these other things that maybe you don't want to do or don't know how to do. And I'm going to be a really good leader at equipping them to lead in that role. And when you have these conversations with them, I want them to be able to tell me a little bit more about building a funnel than I know, because I'm like, dang, like, I don't want to build funnels anymore. I can do it all day long, but I don't want to do it anymore. So I need someone who's better at me than that, at that skill. Right. And so that was a really big piece when it came to building a team for me, was letting go of the control. And then 2, finding out what was my zone of genius that I'm going to stay in as the visionary building this team. And how do I find people that are so dang good in their zone of genius and provide an undeniable opportunity for them to thrive in that?
Yeah, no, there's 2 things I want to touch on. Like, the first thing I was thinking is reward the right behavior too, because there's some things. So for me, there's guys that are really naturally talented at sales and they can just put up big numbers, but they only work 4 hours a week. And I got a phone call like 4 days ago, and this guy's like, why have I never been on a call? What? And I was like, dude, because I'm not trying to show raw talent. I'm trying to show work ethic. That's why I get guys on that work 14 hours a day that still get the same result as you, but you work 3, dude, because you're super freaking talented. But I want to reward hard work. And so I think that's what you also have to focus on too, is incentivize the right behaviors. And then when you criticize people, like, do it in private, you know, because some people don't take feedback the way you expect them to, especially if you're going to publicly humiliate someone and you might not know it. But yeah, I mean, don't have like a fast tongue, especially when you're going to critique. Like I definitely believe on like getting a workout in, or like even having a day, or just like praying on things, because you can like burn bridges that really hurt. And it's kind of funny, like actually how I met you. So I paid for an event with Alex Hermosi to go down and do like a workshop. And then I sat next to this woman, and the whole goal, I was like, yes, I want to learn everything I can from Alex and his team, but I also want to shake as many hands as possible. And I was scared, but like after the 4th time of doing it, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like everyone's great. Like they all just want to help each other out. And I realized my fears were just something in my head and it wasn't reality. And that's a good lesson too. But so I'm sitting next to this girl. She's crushing it in the esthetician space, same as you. And she's like, yeah, I got hooked up with this woman called the Business Salvage. And I was like, Business Savage? I was like, what? Like, no way. Like she better be a savage. And I will tell you this, she is. But I was like, what does she do? And she's like, email marketing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's been such a big thing. And now that's not what you do, but that was the service yeah. And so I got connected with you, and then now I'm getting access to so many people. And like, it's really been showing me like, hey, like you never know what one handshake leads to. And it's like that butterfly effect. But that was really powerful for me, because lately I was feeling stuck in my business because I was so inside of it. And I wasn't just like going and opening up. And even though you do something completely different than I do, that you can still bring value to me and vice versa, right? And so I think that's really important too, is, you know, focus on wherever you're at. But, you know, you did beauty. I'm in life insurance sales. Like the fact we can teach each other, you know, lessons is super powerful. But yeah, that was something I wanted to touch on, like as you were speaking, because it just showed me, like, you've really been showing me the power of connections, and sometimes just doing more for people than, like, I paid you $1,000 and like you gave me $100,000+ worth. I mean, more of just connections and people that I've met and just lessons. And that's something that I've always wanted to do too, is like, hey, like I felt this type of way through my relationship with you. Like I want someone to feel like that one day whenever I'm in the same space. Yeah.
But there's also a difference too between how you showed up for that offer that doesn't exist anymore.
With the bucket hat?
Yeah. No, I mean, energetically and all that sort of stuff. I want to talk for a second about building a personal brand. Obviously, that's my specialty. That's what you're here to do right now. And that's what I really, really understood and realized is so important. And I want to understand from someone who you're still like wildly successful financially, in life, happy relationship, great relationship with your body, great relationship with your friends and team, like, you know, check success. Yeah. But you know, are still working to build a bigger personal brand. And so I want to talk about that, because now that's a really important part of your journey, and that's why you're here right now. And that's why you've hired me, and that's why we're doing all this stuff together. Like, how important is that to you for the next stage in your career? You said a lot of your leads come from social media. So like, I just want to talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I think there's a ton to unpack here. So the first thing that I thought about was, I would look at people on social media and I was like, okay, let me ask myself a question. If someone saw a guy with 50,000 followers that like really looks good on the gram, and then they see my account, even though I will get them a better result, who are they going to go with? Right. Because that's the stamp of credibility. Right. And I was like, I hate losing. Yeah. And it pissed me off that guys that were just like, they had these cars and this and this and this. I'm like, dude, you guys suck. And so I was like, I don't want that to happen anymore. So that was the first thing. Number two was, you is it Kylie Jenner, the youngest one? She was one of the youngest, I believe she was the youngest billionaire in America at like 22 years old. Is she really that great at business? Honestly, probably not. But what does she have? A massive following that trusts her. And she's made $1 billion through a following. And I was like,
the brand.
Exactly. So those were the two first things. Now I started doing content creation and like filming myself 3.5 years ago, and it was awful. Like, it was really hard, but I just put myself in the headspace of this metaphor. If you had to hear no 157 times, but the 158th time it made you $100,000, how quickly would you get through the no's? And so I was thinking to myself, I'm going to put piece after piece of content out until I figure this thing out. And it's this constant learning curve, but I knew that I was going to have to go through 1,000 posts. So I was like, how quickly can I get it done? And if I had to go back and speed this whole thing up, I would just frame it as this is my journey. Here's are my experiences. Here are my lessons. And I wouldn't like be too concerned of the judgment of others, because the second the camera flips on, I typically acted different, and it is really hard to do that. But just like this is one of the best things I did. So I got deleted from social media, and everyone's like, are you going to get your account back? I'm like, no, I'm going to take a little break. But I film myself every single day doing something. And I've only posted 10 of those, but just the practice and the habit of filming myself every day and being in front of the camera has allowed me to be more comfortable. And like, we even shot some videos when we were in your hotel room. Like, I was uncomfortable and the camera was in front of me. And I was kind of surprised by that with like all the cameras and stuff today. And I was like, nah, like, I want people to see that. I really want people to see like, dude, like, I'm far from perfect. And like, that's your competitive edge. Like, that's your relatability. But for me, social media now is just like, that's how you're gonna win. Like, if you really want to build something big, like, you gotta get on the field and play the game. Yeah.
I mean, let's just talk about the fact too that it's not just social media, right? I would say it's actually more about building an audience that trusts you.
Yeah.
Which social media is a vehicle, so it happens to be a really cool tool that we can use to reach the masses because people are on it. But there's also multiple ways. This podcast has been incredibly powerful for me, right? Not on social media, like, people can find it in other ways, Spotify, yada, yada, yada. It's about, we have the power, my phone's over here, we have this stage, so to speak, in our pocket all the time. You don't need to be on a massive stage. You don't need to have anything super fancy or impressive. Yes, my social media following has grown rapidly over the last year, but you don't need that in order to be successful. My business was actually very successful before I grew a large following.
Same.
So, and yeah, right? Exactly. It's about consistency, I would say, is the number one thing. Really finding your voice and your messaging and staying consistent with that. When you can build an audience that truly believes in what you're doing and they resonate with you, they feel the authenticity from you, they like, know, and trust you, all that sort of fun stuff. It's very easy I could come up with a sports bra tomorrow and half of my following would buy it. I could come up with blah, 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 and they'd buy it. It's because they trust me. And so it's not even necessarily about what you do. I really want people to understand it's more so about building a brand is about sharing your true authentic voice and doing it consistently to the point that people care and that people genuinely trust what it is that you're doing and what it is that you're putting out there. Why Kylie Jenner, who's not a great business owner, has built a $1 billion business, and all of the other people out there that are doing the exact same thing. They just show up. Yeah. Right? And they're not scared to show up.
Yeah. No, and I also would just like, I don't know if you've struggled with this, but having validation through like how many likes and stuff like that.
We all do.
And in the beginning, like, it really did affect my self-esteem.
Yeah.
You know, it did. Yeah. And it was sometimes hard to like see myself on camera and like, yeah, I am a dork. And like, you know, I was like, dang, like, that's kind of how I look. But then over time, I really understood like God made me this way and like, I'm going to own it. And when I finally started authentically expressing myself, that's when people were just like, man, like, you're great, you know, like, or the people that thought I was great were like, he's great. And so I would just be really aware of that too, because your validation doesn't come through the likes, the shares, the comments. Like, it truly comes from the heart and like what you believe in and like the people. And also, like, think about this. On an average day, how many followers do you have right now?
140,000.
Okay. How many do you actively see a week?
Do I see? 5.
Exactly. Those are the only 5-10 people that really fucking matter. And so I just reminded myself, my mom, my girl, my boys. That's it. That's all I care about. And they know what I'm trying to do, and they appreciate the hustle. Everybody else, I was like that gave me so much peace in terms of, dude, I'm just going to put it out because the people that I know and respect, like, they know what I'm trying to do. Yeah. The rest, I'm just figuring it out, you know?
Yeah, totally. I like to say, don't compare your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20.
So good.
And it's like, I need to let that sink in for people to really think about, because what you just touched on, I actually had a moment a few nights ago where I was like kind of crying, and someone's going to listen to this and think this is ridiculous because I was crying over a poll on Instagram. But it was like an emotional moment that I was having, because I remember when I first used to put up polls or question boxes, right? Like, you know, when it would be like, ask me a question.
Yeah.
No questions.
Aww.
Right? No questions. And I was like, okay, I can not do this because I didn't get any questions. Nobody cares. Nobody likes me. No one wants to know what's going on in my life. No one values my expertise. Or I can try again tomorrow. I got 1 question. Then I got 2 questions. Then I got 5 questions. And why I was so emotional is the other day I had 5,000 people that had voted on one of my polls. 5,000 people that had voted on one of my polls, and underneath it was like 80 some odd comments or questions in the question box. And I'm thinking to myself, can you imagine if I had stopped when nobody asked a question? Because I was so scared and comparing myself to someone else who gets 50 questions or got 10 questions, or, oh, it must be nice to even be able to answer the question because someone was asking you. Yeah. And I just thought to myself, you know what? Like, I have to earn those stripes too, right? Like, I have to keep doing this and show them consistently what I have to offer. And the more I have this freaking stage in my pocket, the more that I show up and I give value to you asking me a question about what color is the freaking sky. Okay, I'll answer your question. Let's build a relationship, on to the next, right? Yeah. So I think that that's a really valuable lesson for people to remember, is the power of consistency. And also, like, you're not showing up necessarily for the person that you are right now. You're showing up for the person that you're trying to become, and the business that you're trying to build. So, like, I would just imagine this perfect world where I had like 10 people that would ask me a question, and I was like, that'd be so exciting. That'd be so great. And then all of a sudden 10 people were asking me a question. Yeah. So just keep going is my point there, is like, you have to keep going. Yeah.
When it comes to social media and anything in life, consistency equals credibility. Right? Like, the more they see you post, they understand you're more credible. But like, also along the beat of that, I have a question for you. You know, you've had success, and if you could, like, everyone asks the question, if you could go back, what would you do differently? My question for you is, if you could go back, how would you do it 10 times faster?
I would have spent a lot more time on personal development. I would have given a lot more control to God.
How do you let go now? Like, what do you actively have to do to like let go and like receive God?
I want to give you a tactical, fancy answer that you or anyone that's listening could be like, oh, let's get the notebook and like, let's write this down, step 1 to 10. This is what she does. It's like, it's instinctual. It's literally instinctual now. And when I meet people who see me online and think that I'm one way, it's the most beautiful thing in the world when they are like, you just have this insane glow, and like, you have this energy, and you have this like you're so sure, and there's just something about you that I'm really attracted to. And I feel like I've worked really hard at figuring out what that is. And for me, it's like, I have 100,000% trust in God. And so I don't have a thing that I do. It's, oh, that sucked. Oh, I stubbed my toe. Fuck. My nails don't look good in these shoes. Oh, okay, whatever. Like, there's nothing, honestly, that can happen or will happen. Knock on wood.
Yeah,
I don't know
right.
why I hit my hand.
Mitch, give us some wood, bud.
My first thing is that I just pray. Like, I just pray and I turn to God, and it's like my whole body fills with, I know. And it's like this smile that comes over my face. I'm like, he's got me. He's always got me. So like, it's just, it is literally all good. Whatever it is, it's all good. It's his plan, not mine. Yeah.
I think like putting it into practice like every day was huge for me. And then I took a lot of thoughts captive, and I was like, God, if this isn't from you, please remove it. And that's been such a big prayer for me lately, because there's invasive thoughts that creep into your head. And, you know, I believe it's in James, and someone out there, I know you're going to come after me, but it says like when a desire is conceived, it breeds death. Like it gives birth to death. And when death is full grown, it gives birth to sin. And when sin is full grown, it leads to death. And I believe that's the same thing with doubt. Because if doubt continues to fester, like you have to just release that and be like, God, like I have this doubt, like please take this away. Like I cannot handle this right now. Like I'm only man, I'm only woman. And I think that's been a really good thing that I've been like implementing in like my daily practice is like, dude, if it's not from you, like help a brother out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I always say this is his battle, not mine.
Yeah.
Right. Something that he's fighting that's much bigger than you, and just let him take it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's cool because I think everyone says you cannot have faith in your business, and I completely disagree. Like I really do, because I think that's the heartbeat of our business. Like we have Muslims, Jews, Christians, Hindu, like you name it, like we got it. But what's cool here is we're never going to bash one another. You know, we just have questions, and we've created a space where like we can openly ask each other like, well, why do you guys believe that? Like why this and this? And I think it's really good to have this world perspective of why do people believe the things that they do? And not like you don't knock it for them, because if you really want to introduce someone to God, like you have to be a light. Like everything evil is from the devil. And so I was walking through campus one day, oh my gosh, and this guy's like Bible thumping, you're going to hell, you're going to hell, you're going to hell. And I was just thinking to myself, is that ever gonna get across to anybody? Because how I was shepherded in my face was this dude was named ETE, and he had the biggest smile 24/7. He always made people laugh, and he had a slogan like his name's Edward, but it's Edward the Encourager. And I thought it was so goofy and fun. But I was like, like why are you so pumped up all the time? And he's like, the Spirit, brother. And I was like, the Spirit? Like you've been drinking? Like the Spirit's, I know, like that's right down the road at the convenience store, baby. Like, and he's like, no, like let me send you this book. And I was like, sure, whatever book. And I get the Bible in the mail, and I'm like, what the heck? And he's like, nah, just check this out. Like read like Proverbs, Solomon, the wisest man that ever lived. Like if you're really seeking self-help, like go and read the wisest man that ever lived, Proverbs, which is amazing. But yeah, I think, you know, there's so many translations like in faith that goes into business to just be that beacon, like be that light for people, and good things will happen to you. Like whatever you want to karma, reciprocity, right? Like good energy, like that stuff is the real deal, you know? And for me, like it's the Spirit, you know? So you'll get rewarded for that, but that's just a constant reminder. I did this. So I started a YouTube channel like a long time ago when I was like 19, and I wanted to.
So last year.
Yeah, 6 years ago. Yeah, last year. If I like fully shave, I honestly think I'm like 18. Like this one guy was playing basketball, and like he's like, dang dude, you're pretty good. Like what high school do you go to? And I was like, what? High school? I'm like, boy, I'm gonna bust your ass now. Like I'm really gonna give him the work. But I just completely lost my train of thought, honestly.
He gave you the Bible. He told you to read it.
Yeah, and so, but I really think like it comes down to like just smile. Like just like if you're genuinely just like happy, like just stack your daily wins and just watch good things happen to you, you know?
Amazing.
Yeah.
We could talk all day.
Yeah.
I'm sure. What would you like to leave the audience with? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think if you're out there and you're still in the position of like making the decision of taking the chance, like what I always told myself is, dude, if I tried it and I just went hard for 90 days, like 3 things are going to happen. Like either slowly I'm going to progress, and I'm going to see the ascension, I'm going to keep going. That's the first thing. 2, I might just come out of the gates and crush it. Or 3, like it's not for me. And guess what? You go back to the exact same position you're right in, and then you can try something else again, you know? And I think that's really important, because like there's actually no, like fear is just something in our heads. But I would just, you know, move inch by inch, step by step, and just take it as it comes, and like continue to battle. And then like it's going to be okay if it doesn't work out, honestly. Like you'll go back to your 9 to 5, you sit there for 4 months, like work on your habits, and then go at it again.
As a leader with a team of 187 underneath you, what's next for you? What are you focusing on for the next year?
Yeah, my goal is I would like to do 100 million of paid out business. So pay our team 100 million and earn commissions. And I would like to help 1,500 people make 6 figures this year. People that don't have sales experience, no college degree, no real hard skills. Those are the people that I really enjoy working with. But long term, and I've really been starting to say this out loud, I believe that we can build something that is the biggest sales force in all of America. Like create a result where anybody and everybody out there can come in and plug in and just have a work ethic, and money is just a byproduct. Like just turn these people into amazing people. And yeah, it starts with me and the whole team, but I mean, that's my goal. Like this isn't a business. This has been a movement for me, and you know, it's been written on my heart. Like this is what I'm here to do, and like God willing, just keep me healthy. Just allow me to do it.
Why is it so important to you?
I think like the richness and the depth of just seeing somebody achieve what they never could, like it genuinely like brings me to tears thinking about, because I never thought in a million years like I would be sitting in this position. And the fact that somebody took a chance on me and like pushed me and drove me and picked me up when I was down, that I didn't think I could take the next step, just showed me so much goodness. And it just like breaks my heart knowing that people are out there and they're struggling. Like it really does. Like the pain and suffering like of this world is just so deep and sad, and if I can just have like a small little impact on it, like that's all I could do. You know, like I really believe like my body is just like a big old sacrifice, like whatever I can give, you know, like that's what I want to do. And I think it's rooted in, you know, certain things that, you know, happened when I was younger, and that's okay, because like the suffering was why I am who I am. And so
It always is.
yeah, but yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm excited, and I appreciate you a ton.
Of course.
Yeah.
For someone who's listening to this, who's interested in finding out how they can join your team, how can they find you?
Yeah, so first off, my Instagram is Hawkins Wylie, Wylie. It's just my last name, first name, and my phone number is 970-948-6022.
That is the first time anyone has ever given their cell phone number on this show.
You know what's so funny is I get phone calls probably twice a day, and people are just like, dude, like I saw you on this, I saw you on that, and like if they're weirdos, like I'll just block you, you know. But yeah, like I'm accessible, you know.
Cool. So hit you up on Instagram, hit you up on your cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna answer. They're gonna.
I won't answer. Text me.
You want them to text you?
Yeah, I'm not answering.
Okay, they gotta text you.
I'd never answer phone calls I don't know.
Yeah, I feel you on that.
You know.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing all of your wisdom and your knowledge with our audience, and reminding them that if we can do it, that they can do it too. We appreciate you for being here.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you.